water of the sea. So were any old thing to be able to be used, they may not have felt that they were in that difficult circumstance. But however, because water must be used, they either had to use their drinking water or the seawater, but they didn't have anything else that they could use. And he said, "Huwa tahuru ma'uhu al-hillu maytatu." And that hadith is related by La ilaha illallah al-khamsa. And at-Tirmidhi said that it was Hasan Sahih. It was good and rigorously authenticated, or you could say good and sound. So he said its water is pure and purifying, and its carrion is lawful. So fish that are found dead, one can eat them. And the water of the ocean is pure and purifying. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So if you could continue, Auntie, with the next section. Mm-hmm. Al-Mushammas. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. La ilaha illallah. We're going to simplify that first, and then we'll come back through what the author talked about. Okay. We understand that water must be used. And the only thing that you can use for purification is plain water. You can't use tea. You can't use Coca-Cola. You can't use juice. Just water, plain water. Right? So if someone is, without, you can use bottled water. You can use some Nivea or Avion or whatever, because that's just water. We'll define plain water in a minute. You need water to purify yourself. And then plain water is a category, and then there's some other categories of water that can't be used because they're either impure or they've already their purification has been taken away. So there are three categories of water. Plain, which is pure and purifying. I'll define each in a moment. Water that is pure but not purifying, which we'll also define. So this water that's pure but not purifying, we can't use it for wudu and ghusl and stuff. And then water that is impure. So he divided it into four types, just because some water is offensive. But we're going to put it back to three divisions because that's a little bit clearer, and we don't really deal with the offensive type here. It's not hot enough here. So there's plain water that may be used, which is water that's pure and purifying, right? There's water that's pure but not purifying. And there's water that is impure. Okay? What is pure, purifying water? It's just plain water. What is plain water? It's water that came down from the sky or up from the earth, however it naturally is. So if it rains, you can gather that in buckets. It gathers in reservoirs. It's fine. If there's a river or a spring, sometimes you go places and that might be sulfuric, so it smells like sulfur. But it naturally smells like sulfur. That's fine. Maybe, somewhere, you're somewhere where there's a certain kind of plant growing in the water and it changes it a little bit, that's fine, because that's how it naturally is. Plain water is water that came down from the sky or up from the earth, however it naturally is. And that may be used. That's plain water. So the water that comes out of our taps is plain water. And we'll discuss a little detail there, but the water that comes out of our taps we may use. It's fine. Personally, I would not make wudu or ghusl in a chlorinated swimming pool, especially a public one that's heavily chlorinated, because it's been changed now. And it's not how water naturally is, and we're going to discuss that in a moment. But in our environment, pretty much all the water it can be used. You just got to know how to avoid using used water, which will be defined in a minute. Okay, water that is pure and not purifying. Category 2. Water that is pure and not purifying needs to be divided into 2 more types. That is water that is changed or water that has been used. Okay? So water that's pure and impurifying is water that has been changed or water that has been used. Changed means that something pure has mixed with it and changed it so dramatically that we no longer call it plain water. Okay, changed water means that something is mixed with it and changed it so dramatically that we no longer call it pure water. What do we call it? Tea. You can't make wudu with tea, because now it's not water, it's tea. And also, the example I used, and this is my personal view based on how I've understood the question, though I haven't confirmed it and researched it more thoroughly, but I would say chlorinated water, like a swimming pool. We no longer call it plain water. We can't anymore, because the change is so dramatic in its taste, color, or smell that you can't just call it water anymore. You got to call it something else, either tea or like chlorinated water or rose water or something like that. But it can't be called, so like some of those drinks where they mix in a little bit of flavor, like if it gets to the point where you call it juice, forget about it. But also if they mixed in some amount of flavor as well. What is used water? Used water is water that is a small quantity and has been used for an obligation of purification. Right? Used water is a small quantity that has been used for an obligation of purification. So this is probably the main one that's going to be an issue for here. If we know plain water and we know used water and we know how water becomes filthy, we're straight. Because unless there's a drought or something, I don't think people are going to be tripping, or just avoid swimming pools. But how does water become used? You use it. It's a small quantity, which will be defined, that you use for an obligation of purification. So what does that mean? You can't fill up the face bowl and make wudu and it's splashing back into the face bowl. So just take out the plug. That's what it means. It means you can't fill up the bathtub and then do ghusl in the bathtub and then get out and someone else does it. That's all it means. So just use water that's running, or if it's in a bucket, don't make your wudu in the bucket. Take it out of the bucket with your hands and make it so it falls out of the bucket. That's it. And a small drips falling back in it, they're not an issue. Okay, so that's used water. Water that is a small quantity that's been used for an obligation of purification. What is filthy water or impure water? Impure water is a small quantity that has come in contact with filth, which will be defined later. Like our excretions, blood, our other excretions, those are filth. A small quantity that has come in contact with filth. Or a large quantity that has been changed by filth. Okay, I'm going to give you something that I want you to note down, and it's really important. It's the most important fundamental of jurisprudence. It's called a maxim, or you can call it a rule of thumb if you want, in layman's terms. Certainty is not